I did. When I go to USC, and I'll be on campus this Thursday, I'm not allowed to say where I went.
Oh, I get it. You don't have to say it.
But I'm
starts with a U and ends with an A, right?
But I'm right now in friendly territory. So yeah, I got my M.B.A. at UCLA.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to dive into that because what was the culture difference between USC and UCLA? Like, because both are in LA, and I'm just curious.
Yeah. It's a great question, and interestingly enough, I think that UCLA and USC have way more in common. Not only do they have more in common than people realize, but they have more in common than they have differences. So my experience at USC as an undergrad was actually pretty similar to my experience at UCLA as an MBA student. So what I really loved about USC as a college student was the fact that even though there were however many thousands and thousands of students, you sort of had this feeling that you knew everyone.
Yeah.
You knew your professors, you knew the administrators, you knew your classmates. It was a very warm feeling, a lot of school spirit. Everyone loved the school. One of the amazing things about USC, didn't matter what you were into, what your hobbies were. I've always been a huge sports guy.
Yeah.
But there were people who hated sports and they may have been really passionate about the arts. No matter what it is that defined you, you loved USC. There was something there for you. Everyone loved the place and everyone really loved each other. UCLA Business School, when I was there, and I'm sure now, has a very similar feel.
Cool.
Great people, great culture. The biggest selling point about UCLA Anderson is the people. Just, I had great classmates, and anytime you meet someone who's a UCLA Anderson alumni, you just know they're going to be a good person, and that was the best thing about my experience there.
What has getting an MBA taught you about for entrepreneurship? Because I hear some MBAs say, go get an MBA. Some people don't have MBA say, if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't. What's your thoughts on that subject?
I think it's a highly personal decision,
okay,
and I think that it's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
Okay.
So I think that for some entrepreneurs, getting an MBA is great because there are aspects to business school that are helpful. The two that really come to mind, and the two that were not only most helpful to me, but I think are universally most helpful. Number one is the network.
Okay.
So, you know, I kind of alluded to the fact that I met a lot of great people while I was there, but even just being an alumni of UCLA or of USC or whatever school you go to, you're automatically a part of this great network. And, you know, you have your friends and classmates who you went to school with, and then you have all these people who you can just more naturally and organically connect with because you are part of this business school network. The second part of it is the brand and the branding that's associated with getting an MBA. So just because you have the three letters MBA next to your name doesn't necessarily mean that you're any smarter or any more knowledgeable than a guy who doesn't have those three letters. You may not even know more about business than you did before you went to business school, but from the outsider looking in, you have this extra level of credibility. So you walk into a meeting, you come on a radio show as a guest, and all of a sudden it's Adam Mendler, MBA alumni.
Yep.
He must know something about business. And we live in a time and place where people really put a lot of stock into that. And I'm a very big believer that, you know, you are your own brand.
Okay.
UCLA isn't my brand, USC isn't my brand, the Veloz Group isn't my brand, but they're all pieces of my brand. And you really want to go through life and get experiences that will help you not only learn as much as you can, not only develop as much as you can, but really help you build your brand so that as you start cultivating relationships, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an intrapreneur, no matter what it is you're doing, you're able to walk into a room with more clout than you would have otherwise had.
No, I love that. And that actually segues into the next conversation about personal branding. I mean, one thing I love about you, I mean this, because I've interviewed a lot of people with personal branding chops, is you're out there. I mean, you write, you speak, you're doing content. When did you realize that having a personal brand was important for your, whatever your reasons were?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for the kind words, and thank you again for having me on. It's not only fun to hang out with you, but
Yeah.
fun to be here and be here with your listeners. Um, I would say that in college, I really started thinking about building my own personal brand, and that was one of the great things about USC was understanding how things really fit together. And from the time I was in college until today, I've thought about things in that way. And as I've gotten older, I think I've gotten a little bit smarter about how to do things maybe a little bit more effectively, but I've had that mindset from a pretty early age.
Okay. So, when did you notice that having a personal brand was helpful for you in the business settings?
I think it's always been helpful. It's clearly helpful now, but it's always been helpful. Um, I would say it's been most helpful as an entrepreneur because when you're working for the man, when you're working
Yeah.
for a big company, I said 3 minutes ago, you are your brand,
Yeah.
but you are in a lot of ways defined by the company you're working for when
That's
you're
true.
walking into a meeting. So, if you work for Goldman Sachs, you hand your business card out, and the biggest letters on the business card are the letters that spell out Goldman Sachs. And then in smaller font, it says your name.
Yeah.
And that is the same for whatever company you work for. When you're an entrepreneur, there's a pretty good chance that people don't know your business, especially when you're starting out. Now, as you get bigger, sure, if you're the CEO of Uber, or if you're the founder
Right.
of, you name it, of Nike, Phil Knight, everyone knows Nike.
Right.
But when you're first starting out, people don't recognize the brand that you've built as a company. So your personal brand becomes all that much more important. And I found that to be the case for myself.
Okay. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. How did you get started as a writer? And because you've done a lot of articles, how did that whole process happen for people who want to get into that side?
Yeah. Again, also kind of accidentally. So I've always enjoyed writing. When I was in college, I got a degree in business, but I also got a degree in political science. And I just always enjoyed writing, but I never did anything with it. And I never really wrote anything until a few years ago. And I had this opportunity through this group that you and I are both in, this entrepreneur group, where I was given this chance to write articles that could potentially get picked up by different publications. And really my idea was I would write an article, have it get picked up, and hopefully it would be a way to drive some eyeballs to my businesses.
Yep.
So I thought it would be a good form of PR for my companies. And it was the kind of thing that I didn't really think through all that deeply, but as an entrepreneur, you're always trying to throw things against the wall and hopefully something sticks. And I stumbled into a real passion, a passion that I didn't know I really had, and a skill set that I didn't really fully appreciate the extent to which I had. And I've written around 70 articles that have been published, and it's purely a byproduct of writing that first article and just thoroughly enjoying it, enjoying the process, enjoying the creative process, and enjoying the process of sharing the thoughts and experiences that I've gone through with other people out there who could potentially benefit from mistakes I've made, from things that I've learned, from things that I've given thought to.
Okay. I have one last question before we take a quick break to dive into leadership is how does one find their authentic personal brand? Because you said something earlier that you're not your school, you're not your company, you're me. And I love that because that's authenticity. How does one find that specific personal brand? What advice would you give them?
A great, phenomenal question, and I think it actually pivots very well into the next topic of leadership. I'm a very, very big believer that most people in life are bad at most things. I think that, like me personally, I'm terrible at many, many things in life. I don't think we have enough time, certainly not before the commercial break, to go through everything I'm bad at. I think that we're all good at a few things, and I think we all have that one thing that we're exceptional at. And I think that in order for us to truly become our best selves, to truly become as successful as we can be personally and professionally, first thing we need to really do is understand what is our superpower, what is it that makes us special, what is it that makes us unique, what is it that makes us different. And there's a whole process to that, but that would be the first step to it.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to jam with Adam. We still have a lot of time, and we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. It's going to be a really good conversation, so I'm going to play some music. In about a minute or so, I'm going to bring us back on air. So this is Entrepreneur Nation on KUCA, Deponent FM in Irvine.